welcome to Flock Talk episode 18. Today we're going to be talking about simulation games. It should be a good time. So today we're going to be talking about simulation games, but first I want to tell everybody that you got to go to the Buried Game Exchange May 6th because they're going to be selling tons of old games, some new games. We're going to have a Magic the Gathering Cube tournament there hosted by me, Myles, the Great One. And there's going to be a whole bunch of other awesome stuff. You definitely have to check it out. Check the description of this podcast for additional details about the location and all that fun stuff. So now we're going to go over to Hot Topics.
Hot Topics.
And I'm going to start with the hottest topic, my hot take on the God of War.
Oh, this show
Game came out yesterday. It's been out for weeks, but by the time this episode's out,
it's an old topic.
like
It's a lukewarm topic at this point.
like last month when I said there were 3 ships in Sea of Thieves because I had only played it for a day.
Are there more than 3 ships?
No, there's 2 ships.
Oh.
There's just the big ship and the small ship. And I invented some third ship. Anyway, God of War, played it for like 2 days. And it's really interesting. I haven't played a God of War game before, but you definitely do not need to have any background information. I mean, all the information you need is right in the title. It's the God of War.
And also, it's like, even if you played the old ones, this isn't like the old ones, right? This is...
The perspective is different. It's over the shoulder.
Over the shoulder.
It actually plays, weirdly enough, like Last of Us, where you're walking around like Joel, and you have Ellie, which is Atreus, your son, who's with you. And the combat is amazing. It's just, it flows so well. Like, it's very satisfying combat. And the story is really good. And
Sorry, does it have, like, quick time event fighting too? Because I played a little bit of the first God of War, or like maybe the half of it or something, and a lot of it is
I believe that it does.
prompts.
I haven't gotten to it. So what happens is when you beat an enemy down enough and it's got like half a health bar left, it'll give you a prompt to press R3, and when you do, it'll get into a cutscene fight.
Oh.
And so the ones that I've been in have just been like press R1 and R2
Oh, okay.
to like rip its stomach out and stuff. It's been a great game.
Is it a perfect game, though, so far?
One complaint, this is why it's so far getting 9.5. I think that there is too much to upgrade. I don't think it needed as many upgrade options
Like there's
as
too many
it has.
systems.
I don't think there's too many systems, but there's like, I can upgrade the handle to my axe, and I can upgrade like the axe blade. I don't need to upgrade all these things. And then there's enchantments that you get on you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can upgrade the enchantments.
Oh,
There's like
yeah.
a whole subset of people that love all that crafting and enchantment stuff, and I just blow by it in almost every game.
I kind of wish there was an option to just auto update. So it just does
maximizes.
it just does the best it can given what you have.
I don't mind it as long as it doesn't become essential to success in the game, right? Like if you do it and it makes things easier, then that's fine because you've put the effort into figuring out the best place to spend your points and your money or whatever. But if you have to do it, like if you don't do it properly and you get to a point where, oh, now my axe is too crappy and I can't do anything, like I'm not gonna be able to beat this monster.
Yeah.
And then you have to go back and grind and get enough money to be able to upgrade your axe properly. That part stinks.
Yeah, and I do think that there is an upgrade, like you can notice damage being increased and stuff like that, but it's way more about the tactical strategy in combat than it is about how good your weapons are and stuff. Like, I've never played Dark Souls or Bloodborne, but I now have a greater understanding of what Dark Souls and Bloodborne are.
Right.
Where I'm just constantly like, you gotta dodge. You have to dodge. If you take a hit from this monster, like, it's bad news. Like, 2 hits, you're dead.
Right.
You really have to push it. The relationship between the father and son, though, is what's really getting me. Like, it is so strong. At one point, you see this monster, and the boy's like, my mother told me about this. If you are killed by this monster, you don't go to Valhalla. There's no afterlife for you. You're just dead. And then it gets out of my way, And the boy's like, we don't have to fight it. We could just keep going. And Kratos goes, no, we will fight it because you are afraid of it. And I was just like, oh, chills, chills. And there's just like moments like that constantly in the game, like him teaching him lessons about what he needs to prepare for because the child is not aware that the child is a god.
Oh.
So he's like teaching him how to grow up and take control of his
I
life.
watched a little bit. He was playing this morning, and he was just riding around in a boat. When you're in the boat, like it's like a little canoe, the kid asks Kratos to tell a story, and then Kratos tells like Aesop's fables and things like that, but in his weird Kratos kind of way, where it's just like, let me tell you the story of there was a tale of a hare and a tortoise or whatever, right? And it was just like the tortoise wins. Like he's like,
well,
you know,
he's like the hare is foolish
and lazy, and the tortoise is like determined or something, and then the tortoise wins. And then the kid's like, you're not very good at telling stories. It's like these really sweet moments, and those moments also existed in Last of Us too, right? Where Ellie finds a joke book, and when there's like a little bit of a lull, she'll whip out like a stupid pun or something like that from the joke book. And like those moments kind of like it takes you out of the game for a second and like just into the relationship, right? Like you forget about what your purpose is and what you're supposed to be doing, and then it creates these extra connections to these characters so that the more you play the game, the more attached you are to them, and then big story elements become even bigger, right? That's kind of like what happens with that.
And you know, my plan was for this game, because I bought it on day one, paid full price for it,
pre-order.
What my plan was, since I have the platinum EB Games card, was what I could do was play the game. If I had finished it within 7 days, I could return it for full value and get another pre-order.
Really?
Yeah, but that pre-order I can't do that with. They have to stop the cycle.
That seems... Wait, you have to have finished it?
I don't have to finish it, but within 7 days I can return it.
It's almost like a trial.
But you're not going to do that anymore?
The game is really good. It's like so much fun. If I can finish it in 7 days, if I come close, but not rush myself, like really pace it and enjoy it still, then that's good. It's very easy to just do the story parts of the game.
Okay.
Like you get a waypoint, so you can always go to the next part of the story. But if you explore, you're heavily rewarded. Heavily rewarded for exploring. So it's worthwhile to check things out. Also, I don't know if you know, but about this in the game, there's no cuts.
What do you mean there's no cuts?
So from the start screen, you press start, and you just carry on the story. It never cuts away from Kratos the entire game.
Oh, cool.
So you follow him, and when it gets into a cutscene, it just gets into a cutscene, like it flows.
It doesn't like there's
no
cut
cutaway
into.
There's no change of cameras the entire game.
Oh wow.
So it's a really interesting.
I'm curious
take.
about the technology behind that, because like for it to be that fluid. Does the cutscene
even when you
I don't want to think about it too much because it's kind of crazy. But...
When you bring up a menu to like upgrade items and stuff, you can still see them in the background. Like it brings up the menu, but it's faint and it still hasn't got the camera in the back. So it's wild. It's a really wild.
And
adventure.
that's something that's like really subtle that someone might not notice that's happening. Like, and you don't understand what's like. You may not be able to like pinpoint what's different about this experience than other ones, right? Because usually when there's cutscene, it will have a really quick fade to black and then fade in, right? Like that usually happens. It could be just like milliseconds, but it happens, right? You actually see it happen. Whereas this one, it doesn't, right? Or at least it's not noticeable. You're saying it just doesn't happen.
It doesn't. And apparently this guy, there's one person that wanted to do this in video games for a long time.
Oh.
And they pitched it when they were working on Rise of the Tomb Raider, and they were shot down. So Rise of the Tomb Raider, he wanted to do this with.
Wow.
And they said no, and he's like, fine, I'll go back to Santa Monica where they really appreciated my ideas. And he went back and they were like, yeah, let's do it.
I'm gonna go back to somewhere where they listen to me.
Yeah, because he went from there to Square Enix.
Yeah.
And they weren't as...
Way to go, Square Enix.
And I think it's a
boy.
really cool mechanic or whatever, like, take on a video game. It's a new way to display a video game.
But, like, why wouldn't you always be trying to enhance the experience, right? Like, it's
or
just,
do something different.
It seems like such a strange thing to shut down. Like, no, we just do things the way we've always done it.
I think that they were worried about it taking over what they were trying to do.
Possibly.
Or
But
it
maybe
costing
if the
too
technology
much.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the technology might not have been there. But this game is beautiful. We don't even have a PS4 Pro, and it looks like we got a PS4 Pro upgrade with this game.
Wow.
Like, it's
It
stunning.
Yeah. Because when I opened the door of the apartment, I can see the TV, and he was playing when I got home yesterday, and I was like, immediately was like, oh my god, that looks amazing. Like
Like,
it's-
you'd see the pores on Kratos. You could see the pores on him.
Just what I always wanted. Has there been any you know, Kratos
Hank-a-pank?
sex scene?
Hank-a-pank. No. Because he is an old man now.
And his kids around him constantly.
Yeah, that's true. But also, I get the feeling. Well, like sometimes the kid will leave. Like you send him on an errand.
Send him away.
Yeah. I was in this witch's hovel. Let's not get into it.
All right.
But Kathryn, you have been watching a hilarious comedian constantly. His special
I'm so
on Netflix.
obsessed right now with James Acaster. He's like a British stand-up comedian, and he has a Netflix series, like mini-series special, which is pretty odd for a stand-up special. It's a 4-part series on Netflix, and it's so good. It's called Repertoire. And we had seen him first, so we watch like a lot of British panel shows. So we were watching Would I Lie to You? And he was a guest on that. And I was just like, I watched it and I was like, Myles, you have to watch this guy. He's so funny. And then when we were just kind of flipping through Netflix, you're like, hey, it's that guy that you like. So we started watching it and then we couldn't stop. It's 4 1-hour sessions. But what's really interesting about them is that he recorded them all on the same night.
Oh, really?
So they were 4 back-to-back shows. Some, like, the audience was, like, some of it was new every episode, right? Because he sold tickets separately for each show, I think. But some people could stayed and were there for the whole 4 hours. And I think I read somewhere, like, the first 3 episodes was his touring show. So he did those 3 episodes on tour. And then for the Netflix special, he added the 4th hour, which is called Recap.
Oh.
It's like bizarre humor, I think, but it's also really it's like a really well crafted show, right? Like really well thought out. Myles and I were talking, reminded us a little bit of Mike Birbiglia, like it just in terms of like storytelling and like
threads constantly running through the shows.
and then callbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
And then, but what's special about this one is that from episode to episode, there's callbacks to the previous hour. So it is a long form comedy special, right? That spans over 4 separate hours. And he's bizarre and weird and funny. It has like some performance art in it, even like it's hard to describe. And I think that if you like stand up, he's probably worth watching. I don't know. You said you just watched it, right?
I watched the first episode of it, and I really liked it. And I thought that it was, like, super clever. There were things that you didn't know were going to become things until much, like, you were 45 minutes in, and he's still talking about stuff he was talking about in the first 5 minutes, and it's just getting funnier and funnier, and it's snowballing.
And then that last 10 minutes of that first hour, you're just like, this is so smart.
Yeah, like it's so well.
So it comes together so well.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this kid, he's just a kid. He's like mid, like 30 something. He's 32 maybe. Like, how is he so good at this already?
Yeah.
And he's been doing it for a while too. Like, I think he started in comedy pretty young, so I like it.
Like,
anyway.
Who is 32 and puts together a 4-hour special? Like, that's something that, like, the veterans coming back out of retirement show up with 4 hours. Like, nobody shows up with 4 hours.
So it's also funny. So then I got like super obsessed with just like finding more stuff about him and like stuff on YouTube or whatever. And he's been on like Mock the Week a bunch of times, and I think he was on Nevermind the Buzzcocks a couple times. And then there's a lot of like small pieces from all of those appearances that make their way into this show. So he's kind of like amassed all of the stand-up that he's done over the last however many years and put them into these 4 hours. There's also like a mini series on YouTube called Sweet Home Ketteringa, which he's from Kettering, UK. So it's like a mini series about him going back to his hometown. And there's a lot of pieces from that little documentary series that, you know, they show up in the Netflix special. And then his dad tweeted about how like the Netflix series is a really good introduction into his comedy, right? But he said something like, he might not be for everyone, but he works really hard, or something like that. And James is like, my actual father tweeted this. I thought that was really sweet.
And there's so many Netflix comedy specials out right now, and it's hard to set yourself apart from the rest of them. And I feel like James Acaster does that. So if you want to see something different, something unique, definitely check out the James Acaster repertoire.
Yes. I've promised people at work that I'll stop talking about him, but it's like no one will watch it. I keep telling them, like, you have to watch it. It's so good.
Chris, you've been playing a handheld game.
I have been. I take the subway, as some people will know. I take the subway. It's about an hour-long commute either way, and so I'm always looking for something to play on the subway. And I think I found something.
Popper? Some kind of popper on the subway?
Some kind of popper on the subway.
What does that mean? What are you talking about?
Oh, like a
peasant?
Yeah.
like
a hobo?
Like a hobo on
Calling Chris
like
a
a
hobo?
subway hobo?
just walking up and down the cars, spilling coffee everywhere. Anyway,
Oh, boy.
I have started to play a game with a very short title, Etrian Odyssey 2 Untold: The Fafnir Night.
Fafnir.
The
Fafnir.
Fafnir.
The
I thought that was a
Fafnir Night.
typo when you wrote that to me. I was
No.
like, Fafnir?
The
Oh,
Fafnir
boy.
Night. So it's a handheld game. If you know about the Etrian Odyssey series, it's exactly the same as all the other Etrian Odyssey series in the kind of main gameplay mechanic. The main gameplay mechanic is that the upper screen shows what your party is seeing, and the bottom screen is a map of the dungeon, and you have to make the map. With the stylus, you have to draw in the walls, you have to draw where treasure is, you have to draw every little bit of this map because you need...
What?
Yeah, and you need to go back to the map constantly. Like, you're constantly at this map. So when you go into...
Can you just build one room, put all the treasure in it, and leave?
No. So you're going through the dungeon.
Lazy player.
No, you're going through the dungeon.
Yeah,
and
but you're
mapping
drawing
out
the map.
No, you're mapping
Oh.
out the dungeon as it exists.
You physically map it out
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Oh, no.
It's
No.
so good. It's
Nope.
so good.
Have you
And-
played other ones, Chris?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But this, I have my stylus out on the subway. I'm like, nah, with my stylus, drawing a map. Every square you move, you like draw in another piece of. It's so satisfying. It's so satisfying when you finally map out the entire dungeon and be like, this is the map I drew. I have every bit of this. Next level.
Does it work that on the top screen they're moving, and as they move, you have to draw it in?
Yeah, so you'll move one square. So everyone is like, it's kind of like some other games, the older games, where all 4 party members or all 5 party members are on a square. And
Okay.
that square, you can move it forward, and then you can move it forward again. And sometimes there'll be monsters actually in the visual field, like they're really big, important monsters that you probably can't beat and have to get around. Or if you walk for too long, you get the usual kind of Japanese RPG random battle with the monsters that are on the floor.
Can you move left and right and everything like
Yeah.
that? Like
Yeah,
north,
all of
south,
that.
east, west?
You
Okay.
you turn left, you turn right, or you can strafe left and you can strafe right.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay, so it's not even paths, not necessarily paths. Like you could be unlocking like a giant room,
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
What is
And-
the combat like?
The combat is the usual Atlas Japanese RPG, one
Turn-based.
attack per character, turn-based
Yeah.
combat. Yeah. Always with the
I like that.
weaknesses, the weaknesses back and forth. You have weaknesses, they have weaknesses. You're exploiting weaknesses.
Okay.
There's a few other systems. It opened up into kind of like a town building thing too. I didn't expect it
geez.
to do this, and it's super easy. None of these systems are at all like complicated, but you open up a cafe, and the cafe serves food, and you need to find the ingredients from inside the dungeon. So you're constantly making these dishes, but the dishes are like complicated dishes that you need to like find the ingredients for, and then you also then need to advertise the dishes, and it's all like this town building sim thing. It doesn't take long, but adds so much to the flavor of the town you're in. The characters are good. The characters are great. Like, it's not blowing my mind in terms of like, say, Persona kind of character level, but
Is it 4-player, like 4-player
Five.
party?
5.
5-player party, and then there's more than 5 characters though.
Yeah, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm going to open up a few more characters here.
Okay,
soon.
and you're gonna.
Yeah.
And then you rotate them.
And is it
Yeah.
standard? Like, are they all like pretty standard style characters? Like this
Yeah.
one's good at like Bard or not? I
Yeah.
don't know why I
What's-
said Bard, but
Standard characters, like you
Like a-
always get the bard.
Yeah.
You get the trickster character.
You get the bear druid.
The bear druid. So, sorry, one other question.
Yeah.
Or a statement, actually. In a lot of those games, one of the make or break it moments for me is when you start adding new characters to your roster.
Yeah.
And if those characters don't level up with everybody else if they're not in the main crew.
Sure.
And that's a real make it or break it moment for me. Do you know if that sort of thing is going to happen?
No idea if that's what's going to happen. So I can't tell you if that's what's going to happen. I wouldn't, if I added new characters on, usually in these kinds of games, I just stick with the party that I brung.
yeah, I get just like so used to them, right?
Unless there is incentive to switch up your party,
Yeah.
I do not.
I will typically go with the, like, who's most powerful and who do I like from the beginning and whose story do I want to follow. And the other ones I don't care about.
I'll pick like if there's more than one healer, I'll find the one that has like the best heals, like the one that can do full party and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because usually there's like slight differences between the types of attacks and the types of healing that they do, and also like how they consume. Do you have like mana or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. It's the
Yeah.
usual kind of Atlas.
Okay.
You have health, you have mana points, and the mana points get spent, and then you got to go back to town and refill everything, and then go back in.
Yeah.
I did not think I was going to like the mapping portion of this, which is why I kind of stayed away from it as a 3DS game. And it's the best part. It is hands down the exploration of this dungeon is the best part.
We were talking about it because you sent me an email saying that you're going to start playing it, and I had just pulled out. Myles had bought me a copy of Etrian Mystery Dungeon.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about it, but I had just pulled it out. I was like, oh, maybe I'll start this game. And then you emailed me saying that you were going to start playing Etrian Odyssey 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Mystery Dungeon is, if it's
I'm sure it's the
exact
same thing. If it's got the Etrian name, I'm sure it's exactly the same.
maybe it is just focused on the dungeon aspect,
Yeah.
though, and none of the other town
It
building
could be like
stuff.
one of those, what do they call it, the random generated dungeons, and
Oh,
then you just
yeah.
keep grinding. It could be like that.
Like a dungeon crawler, kind
Yeah.
of.
Or what do they call that when No Man's Sky did it? What is it?
Procedurally generated.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
okay.
maybe.
that.
I like it better than Shin Megami Tensei 4, which I was
Okay.
also playing for a while.
Yeah.
But Shin Megami Tensei 4 is kind of its own thing. It's kind of more Persona-y than Etrian Odyssey is.
He gave us his copy because he's so nice, and I've been meaning to play it, and I was kind of like debating between that and this Etrian Mystery Dungeon, and the only reason why I took Mystery Dungeon is because I'm just lazy, and the Shin Megami Tensei is like a collector's edition or something, and there's a box, and I gotta
Right.
open it, and blah, and Mystery Dungeon was just sitting there, so I grabbed it.
It's still hard. Like, all Atlas games are kind of hard.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's like systems to learn, and it doesn't spell everything out for you. So I've had to go to the Wikipedia once a while.
Have you had like party wipes or anything like that?
No, but it's been close.
Oh,
but
okay.
but it's always times that I'm like, I got myself into that situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like if I had played this game smarter, then I would not have got there. There's been no random, you can't do anything about this
Okay.
party wipes.
Would you two be against me throwing in one last hot topic here? It's completely uncalled for.
Whoa,
I know. We
4 hot
usually save it for
topics.
odds and ends.
What are we doing? What
What
are we
is
doing?
this?
We
Do it,
started
do it.
with an announcement even. Jeez. Okay.
Wait a minute. We need to announce the 4th hot topic.
And now, the 4th hot topic! Unprecedented hot topics!
This better be good.
Do it! Do it now!
Have you tried the new poutine at Sochelle?
Oh.
This is
No.
this is
I'm
inside
kidding.
baseball.
I'm kidding. Have you seen Prince's version of
Nothing compares to you.
No,
which he recorded 3 years before Sinead O'Connor?
6 years, I think.
6 years, yeah.
no.
And he wrote it in an hour.
Oh wow.
And then he performs it, and they have a fully produced version of it, and it's friggin' amazing.
Okay.
It's really good.
There you go.
It's very similar. Like Sinead O'Connor's is just kind of like the sadder ballad version of it. It's a little bit more pop funky.
And you get to see him practice his dance moves in the high heels, and I can't believe it. I can't believe what I'm seeing.
It's basically just like raw studio footage of him in his like practice studio.
Wow.
Like it was like a setup stage and him trying out dance moves and
Prince.
yeah.
I can't wait to see what Prince does next.
They're gonna be I think releasing a bunch of his unreleased studio like stuff that he just recorded on his own, right? Like the Nothing Compares to You, he just overdubbed every track, right? So he went into a room, came out an hour later with all the lyrics, and then just laid down every track and didn't want to put his name on it because it was about like a domestic relationship ending, I think, and it was not his own experience. So he was like, I didn't want to release it as Prince because it's not my story, it's just a story kind of thing. And so he released it as The Family, which is his band without him, basically, right? So it's quite good.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's 4th hot topic worthy,
But that poutine at Sochelle, let me get back to the real hot topic here. So we're going to be talking about simulators coming up right after this.
Hello, everybody. This is VG Collectaholic, co-host of the Masters of Unlocking video game podcast. Now I wanted to take just a minute and let you know about one of my personal favorite gaming and geekery podcasts. That's Josh Leslie's Frantic Thoughts. Frantic Thoughts is a weekly one-man show that features an interesting personal perspective on video games, movies, and random geek culture, 3 of my favorite things. Frantic Thoughts is a funny and refreshing, bite-sized podcast that typically runs about a half an hour, a perfect listen for my midweek morning commute. Check out Frantic Thoughts on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasting fix. You won't regret it.
So there are a lot of different kinds of simulation games. I'm not too sure if you two are aware of it, but it's not just dating sims out there.
You know what? I also looked at the Wikipedia, Myles.
Our secrets. Keep our secrets covered.
No one wants to know how the sausage is made on Flock Talk.
So one of the first simulators I played was a gambling simulator called Vegas Stakes on the Super Nintendo, and I used to play this game all the time, and
right.
it was poker simulator, and it was 7-card stud and roulette
And blackjack, right? And
blackjack and slots.
You walked around the casino and you could go to the different tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You played this for the CC.
Yeah, for hashtag
completion,
CCCCC.
the console completion challenge.
Because I learned that there was a little secret to
There
the game.
was a little secret to the game.
where you bet it all on black, and if you get it right, then you save the game, and if you get it wrong, you do not save
That's
the game.
right.
And then you rinse
just
and
like
repeat.
in real life, just bet it all on black, rinse and repeat.
Exactly. And then eventually, when you make $1 million in the game, you start with 2,000.
Oh.
And you have to upgrade your casino too, because only the last casino has no limits.
Oh.
So you have to play like limits on. It takes a long time, but eventually, once you make $1 million, it asks you what your dream is, and then you answer, and then it says you will complete that dream.
Oh, look at that. It's also a life coach.
It is, yeah.
It's just the power of positive thinking.
I to piggyback on my own story. This is something I know. I apologize, but it's really related to the
Okay.
gambling. Is I have a friend,
It's really related to gambling.
and I
Tell me.
can't tell. I'm not. I don't know if she wants a story out, so I'm not going to tell you her name. But she had a job where she was on camera, and all she was doing, she would do baccarat, and
Oh.
she would do roulette, and it was a live camera, and she would just spin it,
Oh.
and
Oh.
or she would just deal the cards,
Oh.
right? And people were playing online with a live dealer, but she couldn't see a chat and she couldn't talk to them, but they were paying a lot of money just to have a real person smiling at them while she
Spinning
was
a-
spinning the roulette wheel.
That sounds like a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, she said that eventually the hours got weird, so she had to quit, but
Oh.
she was making like
Decent.
pretty decent
How did
money.
the hours get weird? Like 2 to 4
Because it's
a.m.?
based on whatever the high stakes gamblers want to play at,
Oh.
or whatever time and day
Yeah.
they want to play, right?
Could they tip her?
No, I asked her
Oh.
that too.
Oh.
Yeah, that would have
And she said it was really early days of like,
Right.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like there was no poker stars at the time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you can find dozens of feeds that are like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we said that we were going to start, when we were going to talk about simulation games this month, I also had to look up that Wikipedia just to make sure that I wasn't missing stuff that I played. And when I saw that the gambling stuff was on there, like card games and things, that's actually probably one of the first ones I played was the Hoyle Book of Card Games or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that on PC. And it just had like Crazy Eights. It's where I learned how to play hearts. It's where I learn to play cribbage. Like I can play well, it's been so long I may have forgotten some of the rules, but I have no clue how to score cribbage because it was always done by the computer, but I could play cribbage and I know what it means to like skunk someone and stuff like that. I think there was rummy, and I don't think there was any like gambling like poker and stuff like that, but it was pretty fun. Like they had all the different characters, like Leisure Suit Larry was one of the characters you can pick, and then there were two like little kids. If you're playing Crazy Eights and you picked a little kid, they would be an expert at Crazy Eights, but then like let's say Leisure Suit Larry might have been a cribbage expert or something like
Right.
that. But I just thought it was funny that the little
'Cause he's a
kids
dirty
were
old man.
I just like that the kids were also experts in a game,
Yeah,
but they were
but they're
experts in
kid
like
games?
yeah,
Yeah.
like kid
Yeah.
games, which is really cute.
You
My
know-
mom got like super into cribbage, like that's all she played there, and hearts, I think,
That's how I learned how to play Hearts, was just on
in
the
one of those
PC.
Right.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also actually how I learned how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Was through
Oh.
I
Ah.
had no idea how to play that game at all, and I was just like, it can't be that much different than Magic, and I started playing it, and I taught
Oh.
myself how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Just through the simulator.
Here's a little bit of Miles and my origin stories. Is that's how I learned how to play Magic the Gathering. Did I ever tell you this story?
You have not?
He used to like come over and just hang out or whatever, and we'd like play games on the computer or we'd watch movies or whatever. And the one time he left and I went onto my computer and there was just like it didn't say Magic or anything like that. It just, I can't even remember what the file was called, and this is, I don't recommend this at home, kids, but I opened it. I was like, what is this thing on my desktop? And I opened it and it was like a learn to play Magic demo.
Oh,
That
wow.
Myles had put on my computer, and then I just got into it. It was like kind of step by step all the things, like, and it went really slowly through the mechanics of the game and like all the state, because Magic is really complex. I played this like 20-minute demo and I was like, oh, I kind of get it now. Like I understood it, because I know Myles was like super into it, but I didn't really know anything about the game itself. And so I was like, oh, it's a real sneaky way to way to get me into Magic. Although I wasn't like, oh, this is the best, I need to learn how to play, but I was just like, oh, now I know more about this game than I ever knew before. So, and then and then he stuck around for like 10 years. So there we go.
Cool. Cool. And the gifts keep on giving.
And also related to the card games and gambling and simulating other games is virtual pinball. Chris, did you ever play any virtual pinball, like Pokemon pinball or?
I played the virtual pinball that came with the Windows 95 or whatever it was. I played a lot of that and was never good at it. There were a lot of like early simulators on those computers.
Yeah.
Like my original DOS computer came preloaded with one of those early flight simulators that just
Yeah.
made no sense because it didn't come with like a manual. And so I eventually got it to the point where I was like, oh, okay, I'm okay at like taking off, but landing makes no sense to me, and no one's going to explain.
Yeah, landing made no sense.
No one's going to explain landing to you.
Yeah.
Like, you just crashed every time.
Same thing. I like really early on flights. Like I don't play a lot of flight simulators. Like none of them, but for some reason, I think it was like maybe when we had a 486 or something, we played. I think it was called A-10 Tank Killer. You were like in a combat plane. You had to take off, and then you had to like find the tanks on the ground and shoot them or whatever. And same thing. Like taking off was great, and then like reaching altitude was great, and then when it was time to come back and land, I would just die because there's a lot.
I mean,
of,
a crash is also a landing.
I guess so, but it was
They
just
call it
like,
a crash
there was-
landing.
Bada boom.
Bada bing!
Yeah. It was really hard to figure out that part of things, and it had a lot to do with like your speed and the angle and
Oh, and you have to turn
your
on the
timing,
flaps. The flaps.
when to do all that stuff. Like it was just a lot, which I guess is probably very similar to actual flying a plane.
I don't think so. I think flying a plane now, all that's
Oh,
automatic.
it's-
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just pushing
yeah.
a button. Just like start the landing process.
Flight simulators in general are dad games. They are games that your dad really reads the manual for, and he gets really into, and he just loves flying flat and straight for hours. But they're impenetrable otherwise. They are the hardest games. You think Dark Souls hard? Land a plane in Flight Simulator without reading the tutorial. Give me a break.
It's just an old man trying to get away from his family on the computer, reading the manual. Okay, gotta drop the landing gear.
Why does
Get
he
away.
sound like that?
Get away from these stupid kids. Just keep flying.
Honey, can I buy 4 monitors so I can just wrap myself in monitors?
Do you know who has that setup? Is Tom Middleditch.
Oh,
From
really?
Silicon Valley. Yeah, because he hosted an event at BlizzCon, and like
Crips.
he doesn't play Blizzard games, right? He was just there because he's a celebrity and kind of like geek culture celebrity, and then he was like making fun of like different like orcs and whatever. And he got tons of backlash on the internet. They're like, "Who you invited him? He should never have been here. He doesn't even know Blizzard. Why was he here?" And he was getting a ton of backlash. And then finally, he tweeted a picture, and he's like, "This is my setup at home." And it was like the full like 4 monitors, flight chair, the joystick, everything like full on with the. It even had the like throttle thing and stuff.
It had
like
the
that.
throttle
Like,
thing.
yeah, like all of that set up, whatever that thing is called.
The throttle
but it was
thing.
all. It was
He
all set
basically
up.
built his own steel battalion.
Yeah.
Essentially like for flight simulation, and then he was like, I'm just a different kind of geek. Like it's not that I don't know video games, it's just I pick a different flavor, that's all. Right? And he tweeted this thing. I was like, whoa, that is hardcore.
But flight simulators are the rum raisins of video game, right?
Okay,
like,
yeah, it's
like that's you're at Baskin Robbins and someone goes rum raisin, you're like, you don't like ice cream.
Quick tangent. Kathryn and I went to an ice cream shop, and we both ordered Tiger Tail ice cream once. We sat down, we started eating it, and 2 people came in and said, "Ew, Tiger Tail ice cream. Who would eat Tiger Tail ice cream? Gross."
And Myles and I are just like scooping their ice cream. Like
Tiger Tail
shut
is
up,
just
lady.
orange and chocolate, right?
No, it's
No.
orange and black licorice.
Who would eat that?
It's so good.
Ew!
It's good.
Who would eat
It's,
that?
it's the best
Oh,
combination of
disgusting.
flavors.
Get it as a milkshake, Chris. Oh, my
Oh, the
god.
milkshake?
As a milkshake, Chris. Come
Oh,
on.
wow, that's a
So
horse of a
good.
different color.
Ice cream simulator. We need-
Ice cream simulator.
There is a Cold Stone Creamery video game,
I think Ben and Jerry's might have one too.
and there's all
I may
sorts
have
of like
completely made that up.
profession simulators. What do you think of the
Right.
profession simulators? So like the ice cream Cold Stone Creamery simulator, or the Ben and Jerry's ice cream simulator, or like Trauma Center, or like Cookin' Mama.
Okay,
Or-
so Cooking Mama is not like it's a cooking game,
I
but
think
it
if-
doesn't seem like a simulator to
on
me.
Wikipedia it said Trauma Center is considered a simulator, and I think that it is the Trauma Center of cooking.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. It is 100% the trauma center of cooking.
Yeah. Okay. So with Cooking Mama, it goes through all the steps of a recipe, right? Like
Right.
you gotta you gotta peel the potato, and then you gotta cut the potato, then you gotta cook the potato, then you gotta mash the potato, right? And it has all the steps, but it doesn't feel like I'm doing it. But I guess like I don't know. I
But
guess
they
it's
try
not
to mimic the
immersive.
actions of you doing it on the Wii.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what? In terms of being a simulation of the act itself, yes. Like this is what you would do to make mashed potatoes or something, right? Yeah, I would call it a simulation game.
But Overcooked wouldn't be a simulator.
No.
That's more arcadey
Yeah,
couch co-op.
I think so.
Yeah,
But I think Cooking Mama is, and Babysitting Mama is a life's over simulator. That's when you're just taking care
yeah,
of a
and
baby.
like
Right.
and like how much is The Sims a simulator, right? Of real life. It is like an overview simulator, a
Right.
life overview, right?
Right.
You're not doing all the minutia of being alive. You're just making a phone call, calling your friends, and
Another genre that I really like that I play regularly-ish is the city building simulator, like SimCity or like City Skyline. I really like
Which
that.
is recently available on Game Pass. If you have Xbox Game Pass, you can get the
Oh.
newest Skylines.
Why would you want to play it on a console?
It's free.
But besides the fact that it's free, why would you want to play it on a console?
yeah, there are certain games, like especially something like that where
Shut your goddamn.
but games like that where it's a lot of like precision and stuff like that, like not precision, but you definitely want the building to be in this particular spot and stuff like that. I find those like a little bit frustrating
Yeah.
to play on console. Like we have Stardew Valley on PlayStation, and I'm hesitant to play on there because I'm so used to just the quickness of being able to just click quickly where you
Yeah.
want to put stuff and, you know, harvesting crops. Stardew Valley, a farming simulator, right?
But with something like City Skyline, you very quickly find out that City Skyline's not really like a city simulator. It's a traffic simulator,
Oh, okay.
right? Because
Yeah.
like you build roads and then everything in your town starts going to crap because you built like the roads all wrong and no one can get
Oh,
anywhere.
it just sounds like Toronto.
Yeah, and it takes them a month to get from one side of your city to the next. You've locked these poor souls in this like sad, terrifying transit city. It's I really like it. It's really good.
Reminds you of home.
Yeah, I don't do any of the mods, which is one of the cool things about City Skyline is that it's so moddable. You can make your own roads that actually do what you want to do with them. But by the 5th hour of playing through City Skyline, I'm like, okay, that's enough City Skyline.
Something like that I'm less interested in. Like that's like why I play Stardew, because there's still a story to it, kind
Right.
of, and there's other stuff to do besides just the farming, right? Like there's fishing and relationship building and mining and stuff like that. So it kind of has all of it. I guess it's not like a straight on farming simulator as opposed to something like Farming Simulator or whatever that one. Farm
Yeah.
Simulator.
Would you ever consider getting into like Farming Simulator 17, Farming Simulator? Because they come out with one every year. Right?
Yeah, and like it's like the ones where you're using like a real tractor and like
And it goes the
plowing
speed of a real tractor.
Yeah, and you're like plowing the field and you have to try to go in a straight line and stuff. And in some ways, I've been like really curious about it. We were talking about, I really liked 18-wheeler American Trucker or whatever, which is not a simulator.
You played the PS2 one, which is a port of the arcade.
Yeah, and I played the arcade as well, and I love that game. So much that I'm always curious about Euro Truck Simulator, which
Right.
is exactly just transport truck driving. I was at like a computer store and they had a demo of it, and it was impossible. It's so hard to like move the truck, and I think you were supposed to like back it up into a spot. I'm like, these guys are magicians. I don't know how real truck drivers do it. Like, I'm very impressed by the actual profession of truck driving, having now tried a little bit of Euro Truck Simulator.
Right.
Because if it's anything like that game, it's really hard.
I want to play a Euro Truck Simulator where you pull over at a truck stop and it turns into a dating simulator. Have you two ever played a dating simulator?
You want to talk about dating simulators? All right, here we
where
go.
you get to hit on the little waitress at the diner.
Yeah, that's where I was going with
roadside
it.
diner.
I played a very good dating simulator. It's called Hatoful Boyfriend.
That's the
And
only one I've ever played.
it's so realistic, right? Because you play a pigeon. No, you're a girl who just loves pigeons, right? Is that what that one was?
I think you're a
Yeah.
pigeon too, aren't you? No, you're a person.
You're a person.
Because there was that shot of like the post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it was weird.
I've got nothing else. They're usually just level up your stuff, give the right gifts to the right people, and it depends on the flavor of dating simulator you bought on what happens next.
Because there's that one that's really popular about the dads, right?
Oh yeah, there was the
Oh,
dad
right.
one.
Yeah.
What was that one called?
I can't remember. I remember
yeah,
Pam
yeah,
was
yeah.
talking about it, right? On
Yeah.
Media Mavens.
And then there was
Daddy
also
dating? No.
no.
That sounds...
Daddy Daycare with Eddie Murphy. There was also Doki Doki Panic, which caused quite a stir recently, where it was the horror dating
Doki
sim.
Doki Literature Club.
Doki Doki Literature Club. That Doki Doki Panic is Super Mario Brothers 2. So, Doki Doki Literature Club, yes.
That's a spoiler though, right?
I think most people know it's a horror dating sim.
Right.
Oh, I did not know that. Is it? Oh, that sounds scary.
I mean, it's no spoilers, really, because everybody knows about Doki Doki Literature Club except for Kathryn.
Right.
Oh,
And
oh man.
it like breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's supposed to be good. I don't really have much of a desire to play through the 3 hours that they say that it takes.
It's only 3 hours?
Yeah.
I might play it.
Yeah, do it. Tell us what it's like.
Yeah, I would love to watch you play it. That would be
Weird.
fine.
That's
That's a
weird.
weird thing to know.
That's a weird meatball.
It tastes like orange and a licorice.
Let me watch you date some weird internet predator.
Lots of other simulators out there.
Sports games are the other kind of simulator.
I don't like the sports games that are simulators. I don't like the Maddens and the FIFAs. I like the more arcadey versions of all of those games.
But before we get into that, Miles, you probably have an opinion on this. Maybe you don't. But what's the best hockey game made for any console?
Okay, I mean, there's a correct answer.
There is 100% a correct answer, right?
Yeah. I could be wrong because I never remember if it's 93 or 94. But it's NHL 93 or NHL 94 on the Sega Genesis.
He's got it! One of those two. I can never remember which one it is either.
Yeah, one of those two is the perfect
Oh,
game.
It's the one where the Leafs are really good.
It's so weird because I thought you guys were going to say like a Nintendo game just because I know there were a lot of hockey ones. And the only one I was going to say was NHL 93 because my sisters had an ex at it, like who was super into Sega and he was super into hockey and like we would always play it. I would never play any other game on the Sega. Like I
It's
never had
the
consoles.
perfect hockey game. They made the perfect hockey game
Yeah.
in
It's
93
the one
or
where you
94.
do like spinoramas and stuff like that.
yeah,
and
one-timers. Oh,
Yep.
the one-timers were clutch.
Yeah, and
Clutch.
so like that's the only one I learned, and I was like, well, if I had to pick one, I would say it.
It got a little exploity. You could exploit the game to the point where it wasn't even like a game anymore if you were just playing the computer. But if you were playing a friend, then it was good. Yeah, it was good.
It was so popular that when I played a game on the PS3, it was like NHL 2000 something. It had an option where you can either play the NHL game as a simulator or you could play it with NHL 93 rules.
Oh.
So the controls were exactly like
Oh yeah, I remember
NHL
that.
93. Like the passing, everything was super simple, to the point, and just a couple combos and when to use them, like the one-timers or
Yeah.
like a slap shot and the checking. Everything worked exactly the same except the graphics were like updated PS3 graphics.
Is
which
that
I
the
loved. And the
game?
roster.
Is that the game that Jason Lee is playing in Mallrats?
Yeah, I think so.
Where he's like Hartford, the whale.
They're up 10-1. This is once, twice a lifetime.
Sorry.
I also liked, when I was a bit more into soccer than I am now, I really liked for a little while the Football Manager games. I got one on
Yeah.
my tablet and played it for like a week and a half until things got serious and you really needed to know the systems, which are, again, impenetrable. Like, how much do you know about soccer? You don't know enough.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, that offshoot of sports simulators that suddenly switches to either being the coach of a team or the GM of a team, like, it's crazy to me that people were like, instead of playing the game, I wish I could just tell people how to play the game or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
or,
yeah.
like, buying players and trading and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's all part of it, right?
When you're playing, like, there's a lot of sports games that had that option. So you could play the game if you want, or you can just
Yeah.
simulate it. If you did that, it would be like you were the coach, and you would like make the trades, and you would like take off injured players, and then you just wouldn't play the game because there's like 100 something games.
Yeah.
And you're not going to play through every single game to finish your season.
Right.
Well, and now I've never played, but like in FIFA, and I think that it's in the basketball game now too, the full career simulation where you're like a kid playing basketball in the streets,
Right.
and then, you know, or like playing soccer, and you get noticed and you get invited to a camp, and then, right, and it simulates a full-on career.
Right. And then it simulates the camp screwing your poor family over and not being a camp associated with any kind of real basketball situation.
Oh no, did that happen? Oh no.
And then it simulates your slow, sad decline.
And then your torn Achilles or something
Yeah.
that leaves you out.
Yeah.
And then turns into a
Car salesman simulator where
Car
that's
Oh, this is just like Friday Night Lights.
instead of a walking simulator, it's a hobbling simulator because you can't walk properly anymore.
Oh guys, this is a terrible game.
Or you're just about to hit the big time, but you get hit, and now you're a quadriplegic.
Oh jeez.
And you have to relearn how to do everything.
That is Friday Night Lights.
And then every Sunday at a certain time, the game takes over, and you have to sit and watch all of your friends play professional
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
While you're
Oh,
at home
God.
drinking beer from your beer fridge inside your chair.
Right, and
which
while
was your
it-
going away gift from your
Oh,
friends.
and while a tangentially related kid goes like, "You used to do this, didn't you?" And you have to pick
Yeah.
one of like 5 responses that are equally just depressing.
Yeah, you're like signing autographs at like a drugstore on a Tuesday afternoon.
No.
Oh, but for high school football fans.
Yeah, it's just one guy who
nice.
you see every time getting the same bobblehead signed.
But he's just doing it for you. He's just doing
And
it
then
for
Just
you.
yeah.
No, and then he's standing in front of you and putting it onto eBay, right?
Yeah,
on
right
from
in
his phone.
front of
Oh,
And
God.
the bidding ends at $1.25.
No, this is terrible.
Oh, this is a sad simulator.
How real do you want your simulation games to be? I think is what we're trying to hit on here.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's what we're landing on.
If the game was as real as that, sign me up. I would play that game in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
But I think that's a good way to close off simulators.
I think so.
I guess so. Is it good? I'm pretty depressed now.
Well, it's an ending.
I also, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go watch Friday Night Lights now.
All right, now we got some odds and ends to cover.
Odds and ends.
First off, I just want to say we did talk a little bit about Magic the Gathering, but if you are interested in Magic the Gathering, go on over to Milo the Gathering because we got the Mystery Chaos Draft 2018 there and also a pre-release video for the new set Dominaria. You check that out. Also, Kathryn, do we have some Flock Talk stuff coming out?
We finished Flock Talk RPG, so episode 3 came out, and the finale is going to come out in probably about 2 weeks from now, from when this show airs. And then I think we're going to take maybe a little break to plan what we're going to do next with that. Figure out what works, what didn't work. It's a pretty loose show, RPG. We'll figure it out. Oh, and I was on the Last of Us podcast for CC Prime. That came out in April as well.
You did great. That was a really good episode.
Oh, I just really love that game. And yeah, it was really, really fun. I was on that with Eric, Mighty Q Dog, and Ryan It's Rocket Toss, along with P1 and P2. And it was a lot of fun. And this month they're doing Kingdom Hearts, and there'll be some fun people on that one as well.
Cool. Chris, did you do any podcasting outside of this? Any videos? Anything like that? Oh, you did! You were in a Polykill video.
I was.
We asked questions to Rusty.
Remember
Oh,
If you
that?
want to check
Yeah.
that out, go check out Polykill on YouTube. Questions Q&A with Rusty.
I want to check that out because I haven't checked it out yet.
He actually didn't use one of your questions because he's going to do a whole video around that question coming up
Oh, look at that.
Ooh, spoiler.
next. Yeah.
Spoiler alerts!
Anything else, Chris?
I bought a Kickstarter game. I don't know if it's going to come, but maybe it will.
It's always a crapshoot with Kickstarter.
It's always, you never know what you're going to get when you pay money on Kickstarter.
You just did a buying game simulator.
That's right. That's Kickstarter. The game's called Imperious. All the art, it looks very inspired by Dune. So the minute I saw the art, I was like, okay, you have my attention. Dune!
Lots of spices.
The spice must flow.
The spice must flow.
It must flow. It must always be flowing. The game is you draft your cards. So it's a drafting game, but you're drafting. Kathryn will have, say, the red cards, and Myles will have all the blue cards, and I'll have all the green cards. And then you draft all the cards together. And so I'll have a hand filled with my own cards and your cards. And then I have to play them on planets in order to take them over. But as I'm playing them, if I play a red card that's Kathryn's card, it'll happen for Kathryn. So, like, you're trying to play your opponent's cards in, like, the most advantageous way for you. But some of the cards get played face down on the planet, so you don't know what's coming up.
Oh, that sounds really good.
It seemed great.
Like, I'm already on board with that. Like, it's very rare that you shoot a premise of a board game at me, and I 100% understand what that game is and want to play it, and I understand that game and I really want to play it.
If the game shows up in the next, like, 2 years or however long it takes, we'll come over and try it out.
Yeah, it's supposed to only take about 30 minutes to play.
Oh, nice.
It's supposed to be delivered in September, so we'll see. I'm looking forward to it, because Dune floats my boat, and drafting games float my boat.
Your boat is floating pretty high.
Little backstabs float my boat too.
Your boat must flow.
It always be flowing.
All right, well, that's it from Flock Talk. Thank you all for listening. For Chris and Kathryn, I'm Myles. Take care, everybody. Bye.